What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. We're back out here on the old CJ again today. See, in the last video we worked on the brakes, and we got the brakes working really good. It's much easier to drive, it's a much better driving feel, and safer. It's much safer. So today we're going to work on the steering. So the steering's been suggestive at best. It's got a lot of slack in it. It takes a good half a turn or so of the wheel for it to really change direction. So I've got the hardware here. We're going to rebuild the front end, and we may even throw on the lift that came with the Jeep. We'll see how much time I have today. So let's get started. All right, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen the front end of one of these old Jeeps. I'm sure a lot of you have. It's very, very simple. You've got a tie rod that goes end to end, and then you've got your drag link that connects to the steering box there. It's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot going on. So that's what I bought. I've got the drag link. See, one end of the drag link is not it's not threaded. It's built in. The ball joint there is rigid, so you can't just swap it out like you can the other. So I had to get a full drag link. So we got that. And then we got ball joints here for that tie rod. Some good ball joints going on there, so we're going to get those installed. And then also in the steering, there's, starting up here at the steering wheel, there's a shaft that goes down inside the hood there that goes to the steering box that's up here. And it's got this coupler inline in that steering box. And from what I can tell, that's the only part of that section that has any slack in it at all. So I grabbed another one of those, and we'll see. I've never replaced one of those before. It looks, I don't know. It's got a lot of clips and stuff, so we'll have to figure that out. But we're going to replace that. We're going to replace this. And then the Jeep came with a lift kit, right? From what I can tell, it already has a 2.5-inch lift. But this is another 2.5-inch lift. The thing is, this one comes with brand new Skyjacker shocks and a steering stabilizer. I did notice in the rear of the Jeep, whenever I jacked it up last time to work on the brakes, when I released the jack from under the rear axle, it didn't droop at all. I don't know if the shocks are too short or what, but I would think it would at least have a little bit of droop. So hopefully these new shocks fix that, because it's a bit bumpy back there. But we may throw this on today as well. It comes with like I said, brand new shocks. It's got the boots. It's got all of the sleeves and everything that goes in the shocks. The whole kit, everything ready to go. So we're going to look into that as well. But first, we got to get it to steer right. So that's task number one. All right, Jeep's up securely on jack stands, got the front wheels off. We're going to start with the rearmost bolt here. It's going to be the tie rod. We're going to take that one off, and then we'll get it on the bench, and we'll look at these tie rod ends and try to match the length as best we can. It looks like we're also going to have to remove the steering stabilizer over there, this guy here. So we might as well replace that while we're in there. So we'll go ahead and knock that out as well. I'll probably clean up that crossbar and touch up some paint if there's any rust or anything. So let's get that thing ripped off of there real quick, and then we'll have a look at it and see what we need to do next. First thing we got to do here is wrestle these cotter pins out. It looks like they're going to come out pretty easy. Get those out of the way, and then just undo this bolt. We may have to take some percussive persuasion, or I've got a ball joint fork we can try to use to get this thing out of this hub. So we'll see what we got to do, how mean we have to be to it. Okay, we got the tie rod off. These ball joints don't look bad at all, but I don't want to take any chances. I'm just going to replace them. They're not very expensive. It's not hard to do. So here's the new ones here. They don't have the dust cover on them yet, but it's essentially the same thing. Pretty much just line it up, make it the same length. So I'm going to mark in here and then transfer that mark to this one, make them the same distance out on both ends so that the tie rod is essentially the same length. And then we'll have to take it and get it aligned eventually, but it's not going to be on the road for a while because I've still got to get the tires or the wheels powder coated and some other stuff. So we've got a few weeks before we actually are going to drive this anywhere. And I'm hoping that this steering kind of stays where it's at and doesn't really move around. So if that tie rod slides right back in to those bolt holes or these hubs, we know that we got it really close to the same length. So that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm going to knock these out real quick, throw it in the vise over there, spin them out, put the new ones in, quick and easy, bolt it back up. Now, removing these tie rods is real simple. You just loosen this collar here, that's a clamp collar, and then once you loosen that, you can just spin the tie rod out. And once you spin it out, then you just spin the new one in. I did a measurement of the entire length from the edge of this threaded bit to the other, and it's 47 inches and 1/8. So we're going to make sure we match that when we put it back together. Well, it looks like we caught a bit of a hang up here. I got one end on, worked great. Went to put the other end on and realized that the seller sent me two right tie rods. So they're threaded a different direction. If you look at the originals, the threads go two different directions. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's so that with the rods in there, you can loosen these and turn this rod in the middle and make it longer or shorter, depending on if you need to change your alignment, right? So you got to have a left threaded and a right threaded, and they only sent me the right threaded. So we're going to hold on that. I'm going to go ahead and pull the drag link and get it knocked out, and then we'll probably get started on this lift because we don't have anything else to do until the new parts come in. All right, the drag link is out. I kind of expected this side to be pretty rough because the rubber cover was busted, but it seems solid. It's not, I can't move it easily. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a lot of slack in these. I'm going to go ahead and replace it, but I don't know. May just be a waste of time. I may put those tie rod ends back on because, they seem tight too. So I want it to drive good and I want it to be, reliable and steer well, but I don't think that's where the slack is. So we're going to keep investigating. New drag link is out and roughly the same length. This one's not super important, mostly because this just adjusts where your steering wheel is. If your steering wheel is straight up or cockeyed or whatever, you adjust that here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back on there, spin it around where the ball joints match, snug these up, get that back on, and then I guess we'll start on the front of the lift while we're waiting on the eBay seller to get back with me on the tie rod ends, because that's a bummer. Well, guys, I tried to save this one, but it's not going to work. I banged up the threads on this end, taking it off because I didn't protect the threads because I wasn't planning on reusing the tie rods or the tie rod ends. So this one won't go back on, so I'm going to have to wait on the seller to get me some new ones. I wanted to just reuse this thing because ball joints seem to be tight. They seem to be fine. It's kind of a waste of time, but now it's really a waste of time because I got to wait on more parts. But anyway, we'll get that going. I went ahead and got the drag link reinstalled, centered the steering wheel, got that put back in there, looking good. We got to figure out how to get this steering shaft out. I talked about it earlier, but I didn't show you guys. It's this guy here. Goes from the steering column all the way down and connects to the steering box down in there. And that collar that this joint here is the one that's right here on the end where it connects to the steering box. So that's this guy here. So that's what we're going to be replacing, so I got to figure out how to get that out. It looks like it's just a slip joint on each end with a clamp, but it's getting late in the day today, so I'm going to save that for tomorrow. For you guys, it'll be just a minute. See you then. Alright guys, back out here on the CJ. We're going to work on this steering shaft next. So I got the joint there, got some penetrating oil in there, and on the bottom one as well. I hope I don't have to pull the column up to get enough slack out of it, but I'm not really sure. There should be a slide joint right there. See that notch? Right, let's see, right there. Should be a slide joint there, so it should slide enough for me to get it out. So once we get it out, then we can change out this coupler, get that knocked out while I'm still waiting on the tie rod ends to get here. So work on this for a minute, see what I can get done. It's pretty simple, it seems. You undo this bolt here, and you have to take the bolt completely out, and then that'll slide off with the splines. And then the same thing on the bottom. It's a lot harder to see on the bottom, but it's essentially the same. So I'm going to work on getting that thing out. Once I get the steering shaft out, we'll have a look at it and figure out how to change out this joint. All right, we got this thing out, and it was easier than I anticipated. It's pretty rusty. I was expecting it to be froze up pretty good, but once I got, there's a trick here. You got to pull the bolt all the way out because there's a flat spot. You see, there's a flat notch in this steering shaft. So you got to make sure the bolt's out because it won't go over that lip. Same on the bottom. And then just another FYI, a tie rod or a ball joint fork works great getting in there between that and prying it. And what I did was I stuck that in there and then used a little hammer and just kind of tapped on it and drove it off. But it worked perfect. Come right off. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Maybe throw it in the parts washer, get some of this grease off so we can paint it so it looks better. But we got to get this this joint here off. I got to figure that out because it's pretty floppy. So we'll see. That's the part I'm replacing, is this nasty one on the end. So let's get it cleaned up and see what we got to work with. And then we'll go from there. All right, we got this thing. Just kind of rinsed it off a little bit just to knock the chunks off. All of this is being replaced, so I didn't really worry about cleaning it a lot. But this is our replacement part. So we've got the actual sleeve itself, these square bits, clamp, which is probably that clamp there. You got the boot, which this boot is busted, and you can see there's mud and junk all in there. And you got this metal, and then another clip. So I know I got to get this off to get the boot out of the way. Pull this boot out, and I'm assuming this clip is inside that somewhere. We'll dig into it as we go. I don't know how it comes apart, so we'll have to figure it out. All right, I want to get this on video so that I know how this goes back together. I just peeled that spring wire out of this cup that released the seal. So it looks like you have these guys on either side, and then this spring in the middle like pushes them out or holds them together. So that looks like the way it goes back together. It's full of grease, so I guess I'm going to have to grease this thing, put a new seal on it. So I'm going to get all of this crap off and clean up this end. Yeah, that's horrible. I'm also going to have to get this clamp off because we have to reuse it. It didn't come with a new one. But it looks pretty straightforward. Get all of this crap off and get it cleaned up, and we'll see how the ends look and make sure none of it's too worn to reuse. Hopefully I don't have to buy a new steering shaft. But progress. Looking good. All right, this end looks pretty good. It doesn't look excessively worn, or it's got a little wear to it, but I mean it's an 85, so I think we're going to be good there. I went ahead and hit a little bit of sandpaper to kind of knock the crusties off of there because I'm going to paint it before I put it back on. Make it look a little better. Hit it with the wire wheel on the end here. I got that clamp out. I got it because it's still greasy. I got it soaking in the parts cleaner there. So I'm going to start putting this thing back together. I don't know for sure, but I'm probably going to have to just fill this cup up with grease and then stuff it on there because that's the other one was full of grease, and I'm assuming it needs to be greased up, and there's no Zerk anywhere. So yeah, I'm gonna fill it up with grease, put it together. Wish me luck. All right, progress as we go here. Got the boot on. That was a bit of a pain. Had to slide up and over these pins because this does not come off. They sent this spring. It's supposed to go here to hold that seal, but there's no way this spring will go over those pins. So I guess I'm just gonna have to put a big zip tie on it. But I got some grease in the cup. Go ahead and get this stuff installed and get it slid on. Then we got to figure out how to get this spring in there without it going flying across the room. That's going to be fun. All right, more progress. Well, guys, that went better than expected. Just slid everything on. Start the spring clip here at the top. It goes in this notch. And just work it around, and I pushed it in with some pliers, clipped it in the bottom notch there, and it's on there. Got a good amount of grease in it. It's nice and tight. I need to put a zippy on that and this to keep the water out, and clean up that clamp, and then we can get this thing painted. And the ball joint showed up. So while that's drying, I can finish the tie rod. Things are looking up today. I'm excited. Man, guys, things are getting exciting. We got the tie rod put back in. Both ends is good. I went ahead and shot a little grease in it, but they're already greased because the grease started coming out the top. But tie rods are in. I got everything cleaned up for that steering shaft. Got it in my paint booth. So we got the steering shaft painted, a little coupler, and then the nuts and bolts here. Put a little color on them so they won't rust. Everything's looking good. Tell you what, it's really coming along. I'm really excited for this project to be over, because it's been, I just hate having to stop in the middle of something because I don't have the right parts, even though I ordered what was supposed to be the right parts. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to let this stuff dry and then we'll get it put back together and then we'll check it out. All right, guys, it looks like this one's about done. So we've got the tie rod, we've got the drag link, we've got the new steering coupler in there. Everything's tight. The new steering shaft is right up here, reconnected. The only thing that's left is installing the new damper for the steering. I want to knock that out real quick. Then we can put this one to bed. It'll need an alignment and it'll need a steering straighten. The wheel's not very, it's kind of cattywampus. But other than that, this one's going to be done. I'm excited. I want to drive it, but I got to send the wheels out for powder coat, so we'll have to wait to see how good it drives. All right, let me get out this steering damper and we'll get it put on. All right, just a quick inventory of parts here. So we've got, this clamp is going to be the one that goes on the actual axle and holds the static end of the damper. This clamp is the one that goes on the tie rod and holds the moving end of the damper. So you've got the 4 washers and 4 bolts for these 2 U's, the 2 washers and 2 bolts for this U. You've got this bolts for the end of the shock itself, and then these rubber bushings go in between on either side of these as a damper. So I'm going to kind of lay it all together loosely. I'm not going to put it all together completely. We do have a boot I need to clean up real quick because it's really dirty. This stuff was just kind of in the back of the Jeep when we bought it. I don't know why they wouldn't have put it on, but they didn't. So we're going to get everything set up real quick. Just like I said, loosely put together so we can still move stuff around and get it right. And then we'll install it. All right, we got the loose general layout here. We got big washer, rubber bushing bracket, rubber bushing, big washer nut. Same on the other side. Get your boot on there. Zip tie goes here to hold it all down. Going to get under there and try to get this end mounted. And then we've got to figure out where the middle, where the center of this, the travel of this shock is. Because you want these wheels, you want the wheels pointed forward, so you want this in the middle so you get full left and full right without bottoming it out. So we're gonna get this one installed first and then figure out where this end needs to go because it may not be the same length as the one we pulled off. All right, guys, we got the stabilizer installed. Whenever I go get the alignment, they're gonna have to readjust this bracket because that tie rod, like I said, it spins whenever you adjust the toe. So, but everything's in, everything's installed and snug. So this one is done. We can knock this one off the list. Yep. 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 All right, guys, so this one's done. I'm really excited about this one. This was another big one on my list, another one of the big safety things on this Jeep. I really wanted the steering to be dependable and to be tight, and I hope it's going to be. We got to get the wheels and tires back on it before we can really find out. But I don't know any reason why it wouldn't. I mean, all of the ball joints have been replaced. The steering coupler's been replaced. Everything's tight. Everything's good. So I think the steering is going to be amazing. I hope you guys enjoy the CJ content. If you do, please subscribe to the channel. That way you make sure that you get notifications whenever I upload more content. I've got a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing to this Jeep. We're going to get the OBS back in here pretty soon to do some work on it as well. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with me out here, watching the videos, subscribing to the channel. I appreciate it a lot. We're going to end this one off here. You guys have a good one and rock on.